Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Sparkling Knowledge channel. I want to share with you an excellent story, Camel Given in Charity, as told by Dr. Saleh As-Saleh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. This story took place here about 100 years ago, and it was also broadcasted on the radio stations. It is about a man called Ibn Jaddan. He, Ibn Jaddan, said how during spring times he used to go out, he would see good and healthy fat camels and their udders filled to the extent of almost exploding. Whenever the little offspring, that is, the calf, came close to the mother camel, her milk would pour forth because of the great abundance of blessings and abundance of goodness. So I, Ibn Jaddan, looked at one of my she camels with her calf, and I remembered my poor neighbor who had seven young daughters. So I said to myself, by Allah, I will give this camel and her calf as sadaqah, charity, to my neighbor. And he recited the ayah where Allah said in Surah Al-Imran, verse 92, by no means shall you attain pity righteous unless you spend in Allah's cause of which that you love. And the most beloved from amongst my camels to me is this she camel. So I took her along with her calf and knocked on the door of my neighbor. I took him to accept it as a gift from me. I saw his face glowing with happiness, and he was unable to utter anything in response. So he benefited from its milk and used to load wood on its back, awaiting for its offspring to grow up in order to sell them. Subsequently, he gained great goods from this camel. After the spring had passed, the dry summer came with its drought, and so the Bedouins began to look for water and grass. We gathered our belongings and left our place looking for water and the hole, or holes in the earth, situated underground, leading to water traps underneath the ground. Their openings are on top of the ground, as the Bedouins know of very well. I, that is, Ibn Jaddan, entered into one of these holes as to bring me some water to drink. Dr. Saleh continued, and his, Ibn Jaddan, three sons were waiting for him outside the hole. However, he did not return. His three sons waited for him for 1, 2, and 3 days and finally became hopeless. They said maybe he was stung by a snake and died, or he was lost under the earth and destroyed. They, and we seek refuge in Allah from this, waited for his destruction. Why? Due to greed in order to distribute his inheritance. So they returned home and divided what he had left amongst themselves. Then they remembered that their father Ibn Jaddan gave a she camel to their poor neighbor. They went to their neighbor and told him that it is better that he give them back the she camel and take another camel in replace of it. Otherwise they will take it by force and he will be left with nothing. The neighbor complained that he would report them to their father, so they informed him that he had died. He inquired as to how and where Ibn Jaddan had died and why they hadn't told him. They then explained how he entered into one of those holes underground in the desert and did not come out. The neighbor said, by Allah, take me to this place and take your she camel and do whatever you do with it, and I don't want your camel in return. They took him, and when he saw the place, he went and brought a rope, lit a candle, tied it outside the hole, and then stepped into it crawling on his back until he reached the place whereby he could crawl and roll. Eventually, the smell of moisture became closer, and then all of a sudden he heard the sound of a man by water groaning and moaning. He went closer and closer toward this sound in the darkness, putting his hand out all over until his hand fell onto the man, Ibn Jaddan. He checked his breath and he was still breathing for 1 week. He pulled him out, covering his eyes as to protect him from the sunlight. He took with him some dates, moistened them in water, and gave it to him to drink. He then carried him on his back and took him to his house, and life gradually returned to this man which his sons didn't know. He then asked him, "Tell me, by Allah, 1 week while you were underground and you didn't die?" "I will tell you something strange," Ibn Jaddan explained. "When I went down there, I got lost and wave took me from all directions, and I said to myself, I'd better stay close to this water that I have reached. So I started to drink from it, but hunger had no mercy and water does not suffice. Then after 3 days, hunger intensified on me and took me from all parts. While I was lying on my back, I surrendered myself to Allah and put all my fears in His hands, and all of a sudden I felt the warmth of milk pouring onto my mouth. So I sat in the midst of the darkness, and I saw a pot coming closer to my mouth. I drank from it until I took from what is sufficient, and then it would go. This occurred 3 times in the day, but the last 2 days it stopped, and I didn't know what happened." His neighbor then informed him, "If you know the reason, you will be amazed. Your sons thought you had died, and they came to me and took away the she-camel which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was giving you from its milk. The Muslim is in the shade of his sadaqah. Allah stated in Surah Al-Talaq 2:3, and whoever fears Allah and keeps his duty to Him, He will make a way for him to get out from every difficult, and He will provide him from sources he never could imagine. And whoever puts his trust in Allah, then He will suffice him."